Welcome anyone to my YouTube channel. This is Everett, aka Two Beasts to Kill You, aka the Beast with the Least. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us Season 2. Just finished this past Sunday on HBO Max. Well, yeah, I guess it's called HBO Max. I'm just going to call it HBO Max. It was called Max, HBO Max, HBO Go, whatever. Who cares? HBO Max. 7 episodes only for some fucking reason. Who knows why they did that? A little quick tangent. You know what? Before we get into the little quick tangent, if you like what I'm doing on this channel, like, subscribe, share, comment, all that other good stuff. But yeah, this little quick tangent, I'm really hating this whole, because we're going to have to wait 2 years for Season 3. And they're going to have a Season 3. They've already said that. I'll talk about that more at the end of the video and all this. But we're gonna have to wait 2 years, and I'm tired of this. I really hate this, waiting 2 years for a show that has 6 episodes a season, 7 episodes, 8 episodes. What happened to 10 episodes every year? The good old days, which were 5-6 years ago. Oh my god, yeah. But all right, let's go ahead and forget that, or get past that quick little. We'll say gripe. We'll just call it gripe. Let's get to the meat and bones and potatoes and all that good stuff of Last of Us Season 2. Or, well, you know what? Good stuff. I say good stuff, but right off the bat, I'll just, if you want to go ahead and stop watching from here, I did not like the season. I just didn't. There was about maybe 3 good episodes. 2.5 maybe, really. When I'll explain it, or when I get into my explanation of why I think it's 2.5, you'll understand it, I guess. Yeah, so just a quick little review / number, whatever. This season's like a 4 right off the bat. I'm saying it right now. That's what it is to me. If you enjoyed it, more power to you. For the most part, did not enjoy this season. It was at most a 4. Maybe if I'm feeling generous, a 5. But yeah. So I do have, unfortunately, maybe not a lot of negatives, but enough negatives that obviously drag down the season as a whole for me to not enjoy it. So before I get into the negatives, let's go ahead and do the positives. Because when it comes to the negatives,
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
So, positives. Pedro Pascal, number 1. Whether you like the guy or not, you agree with his politics, or you don't like that he is just in everything nowadays. I mean, just in, I sometimes I'm just, I saw that there was another movie that came out earlier this year. I didn't even hear about it, but he was in it. So yeah, the guy's in everything nowadays. Regardless of that, you can't deny that he's just that good of a fucking actor. He's just that good. And he continued just showing how good he was as Joel. Whether you liked his casting or not, he still was good as Joel in the show. Obviously, they killed him off, unfortunately. So he wasn't in most of the season. But what he was in worked very, very much so. Second positive, Eugene. In episode 6. There's a scene with a character named Eugene that they talk about throughout the season. They talk about him in the game too. But they show what happens to him, why he gets killed, or why Joel shoots him. They show the scene in episode 6, which is all flashbacks. But I'll get to that when I get to part of my negatives. But yeah, played by Joe Pantoliano. Yeah, Pantoliano. Joe Pantoliano. Cypher from The Matrix, if I guess you're old enough to remember that. It was a great scene. He played like I said, played wonderfully by Joe Pantoliano, and that scene was just phenomenal. You could tell, you could just absolutely get the sorrow coming from the Eugene character, that he's been bit and now he has to die and he won't see his wife ever again. Third positive, or next positive, Isabella Merced. She plays Dina in the show, and Dina was a character obviously in the second game, but she wasn't very fleshed out and she wasn't really a big focus. In the show, she's a bigger focus, which makes sense because obviously, when you're playing a video game, you're playing as one character. That's the character you got to focus on. But in a show where you're going to have multiple characters, you kind of typically would want to flesh them out. And Dina's character gets a lot of screen time and a lot of story dedicated to her. That works. And again, acted beautifully by Isabella Merced. To the point where, I think I like her character a little bit more than Ellie's character, but, we'll get into that. The next positive, the way that Joel, his name is revealed to Abby. In the game, he says it to her group, and I don't really like that. I understand. I guess I maybe even have kind of come along on the idea that, like, okay, he was at Jackson for 5 years. He's grown into becoming a dad for Ellie and everything. He might have gone soft, but still, it's just, not who I thought Joel would be. But in this change for the season, for season 2, they change it. Instead of Tommy being with Joel when he's found by Abby, it's Dina. And she blurts out his name when, in a moment of panic, like, hey, we got to get out of here. And for me, that works a little bit more. It's not him revealing his name. It's just someone. And of course, like, why would Dina think, like, oh, I shouldn't say his name? It works. It works in what they did, especially during that episode. The next positive, Isaac / Jeffrey Wright. There's only a few scenes of Isaac, but they try to expand on his character a little bit more. He's the leader of the WLF in the game, voiced by Jeffrey Wright. And I like that they actually just chose him to play Isaac in the show, because Jeffrey Wright is a very good actor. If you've ever watched Westworld or The Batman, he's, and anytime he was in a scene, like I said, it was only a few scenes, but he was just, you could tell he was just so much better of an actor than whoever he was talking with. But yeah. And for the final positive, this is probably the biggest one, is episode 2. Now, that episode, as much as I hated this season, that episode is by far one of the best seasons of television that I have ever seen on anything. It has the event, as we'll call it, or whatever you want to say, the death of Joel, but also they add in an attack scene, a zombie attack scene, or infected attack scene, where the town of Jackson, settlement of Jackson, whatever you want to call it, is attacked by the infected, and all the survivors are fending them off and everything, led by Tommy, which is, you can see that's why they kept Tommy kept him away from Joel, or separated him, I guess, because they had him there to lead the attack or the defense against the infected. And yeah, I mean, if you've ever watched like Game of Thrones, Watchers on the Wall, or I'm forgetting the name of that episode where the White Walkers attack. It's like that, a high budget, just awesome scene where, yeah, they're being attacked by the infected, and just a great overall episode. I really especially like where Tommy's being attacked by one of the bloaters, and he, you think he's gonna die. Obviously he's not, but he has a flamethrower and he just unleashes on it and all that stuff. And yeah, that it's just great. You I can't gush enough about that scene. Plus, then the whole Joel death scene. For me, it works a little bit more in the show than it did. Well, I mean, it worked in the game as well for what they were doing. Besides some stuff I didn't agree with, but it works in the show for what they were doing, and I still enjoyed just Joel's what's the word? His acceptance of like, okay, you're gonna kill me, just get it over with already. They did add a little bit more where Abby's talking about, hey, you killed my dad, so this is why I'm going to do it. In the game, they don't talk about that at all. She just kills him, and then you find out later on. So I see what they're doing with that. They want to add the context, maybe even try to make her a little bit more, what's the word, sympathetic. I'm never going to be sympathetic toward Abby. Also, if they were doing it to make her a little sympathetic, they also kind of fucked up in that, like, she's more vicious in some of the things that she did. And you could tell even, like, her crew, which they cut down. In the game, there's, like, 8, 9, 10 people. There's only 5. The main people. Nora, Mel, Owen, Manny, and Abby. But you can tell most of her crew are like, hey, why are we doing this? You're beating this man to death. I thought you just wanted to take care of this and that's it. So they did even make her a little bit more monstrous in this. But yeah. It's a little weird. But you know what? That's probably now where I'm going to start my negatives. As you can tell, I'm kind of getting into a little bit of the negatives. So, for my negatives, terrible writing is the first one. Just terrible writing. As great as some of the parts, as some of the individual scenes were in this show, with especially when they had Isaac in the scene or Joel, there was just so much bad writing that it took me out because of me thinking about why did they do this? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? I guess I'll add this in, even though I have it in my little list of negatives as a separate thing. Part of the terrible writing is the Dina Ellie love story. The fact that it took up so much of the season just was, to me, such a mistake. We get the episode 1 where, you get a setup. Then we get episode 2 with the payoff of that, with Joel dying and all that stuff. Then we get episode 3, which I understand is going to be a slower episode and kind of another setup episode, to Ellie leaving and searching for Abby. But then episode 4 and 5 almost does nothing with that. There's some action scenes here and there, but it focuses on Ellie and Dina just bonding more and falling in love with each other more. Dina telling Ellie that she's pregnant. Dina finding out that Ellie's immune and all this stuff. And actually a pretty good scene afterwards where she keeps a gun on Ellie. It's a pretty tense scene. Obviously, she's not going to shoot her, but it's acted well enough. But still, just 3 episodes of almost nothing until the last scene where Ellie finally finds Nora, and then you get that famous little red tinted light lit scene where she beats Nora to death. But then it cuts off, and episode 6 is a flashback episode. And so that would lead me to actually my other negative, or one of my other negatives, is pacing. The pacing of the show is just like all over the place. You have episode 1 and then episode 2 to get to, where they get to Joel's death. You think, okay, maybe it's a little quick. Even, if you've listened to my podcast, one of my hosts said he didn't think that they were going to kill Joel in episode 2 because that was a little quick. But they did. And he was right. It was a little quick, but with only 7 episodes in the season, kind of makes sense. And then for 3 episodes straight after that, almost nothing happens until they get to the Nora thing. And then episode 6 is a flashback episode. So with the way they end the show, or end the season, with the cliffhanger of the halfway point in the game, you could tell where I'm going with this. Episode 7 is almost at a breakneck speed of getting through to, okay, now I'm coming back after killing Nora, and we're going to go back out because we got to go find Tommy. And then I go over to this, or Ellie goes over to this spot, and she kills Owen and Mel. And then we get back, and then Abby finds them, and this, and that. It was quick in that final episode, which to me, if they'd had 8 episodes, probably fine, because you stretch that out over 2 episodes, but they went quick. And it's even more so, it's just a strange choice to go breakneck speed with that, because they added a scene where Ellie ends up on the island of the Seraphites and is almost killed, and that's like a quick minute detour, like 2-minute detour, and then we get back to just like, okay, she's going to the aquarium to go find Abby. And so I don't understand why they did what they did, what they were trying to do with 3 episodes of just basically filler. And then, we're going to just speed run the rest of this arc, the Ellie arc, in this one episode. Because episode 6 is a complete flashback episode. It's boggling my mind. I will say, though, I did like episode 6. I did like, if you played the game, it's the flashbacks of, Joel taking Ellie to the dinosaur, then to, the space museum and all that stuff. And also, it ends with her finding out, not finding out, but Joel telling her the truth about what happened with the fireflies and everything. Yeah. So then, we'll go with this as my one more negative before I just end my thoughts on this season with overall. It's the lightheartedness, goofiness. I guess actually would be more Ellie would be a negative. I did not like Ellie in this season. And it has nothing to do with Bella Ramsey being cast. You can, whether you agree with her being cast, I do think she's miscast. She doesn't look like, enough like an Ellie. Funnily enough, Caitlin Dever, I think is her name, the one they cast for Abby, looks more like Ellie than Bella Ramsey does. But that's not my issue, that she's the one cast. And I don't even think she's a bad actress. You'll probably see that a lot. A lot of people saying she's a bad actress. I mean, whether they want to think that or not, that's neither here nor there. I don't think she's a bad actress. And I don't think she even acted terribly in the show. She's, when they give her something good, she knocks it out of the park. When she sees Joel's death, I feel that pain of hers, especially after he dies and she's crawling to him and everything, to his body, and to hold him one last time because that's it, he's gone. Or when she wakes up after getting back to Jackson and when they're treating her and she's screaming, having a PTSD attack. Or even the scene where she attacks and kills Nora. You see the just like the soullessness, the dead in her eyes of like, I'm going to kill you because you took basically my father away. But that's where that ends. Because specifically too in episodes 3, 4, and 5, I don't ever get the sense that Ellie actually is pissed off and wants to go after Abby. I mean, we know that that's what's happening because they say it sometimes, and that's what the story is supposed to be doing. But it's so focused on, again, the Dina and Ellie love story, you know, that almost gets tossed to the wayside. And then the way, you know, with what they gave her, with the script. I mean, we all know the famous, I'm gonna be a dad, you know, but it's not even just that. There's just so many other things where she's just so jokey and so, like, having a good time practically. Having fun almost. There's too much where you could tell they wanted to get a laugh out of the audience more than just focusing on Ellie being in pain and angry and wanting to just get revenge and kill this person that, you know, took her father figure away. Almost to a point too that Dina seems more upset and wanting to get revenge than Ellie does. And so, you know, you couple all that, the bad pacing, the terrible writing, Ellie's characterization in this season, you know, the focus on a story that actually was kind of even more of a side story in the game. You know, it just, even with episode 2 as great as it was, and episode 6 as good as it was, and even episode 7, I will say I enjoyed for the most part. That was probably why I said about 2.5 episodes were good, because I didn't like the pacing of that episode. And like I said, there were some things where I'm just like, okay, why are we adding this in there? Yeah. I cannot bring myself to try and say that this season was more than, a 4 or a 5. But yeah, you know, so yeah, we get 7 episodes. It ends on the cliffhanger. Actually, it didn't even end on the cliffhanger of, you know, you hear the gunshot, and so you're supposed to think Abby's shooting at Ellie. They actually have that one extra little scene where Abby's waking up inside the stadium for the WLF. She looks over, and then you get a little Seattle Day 1, so it's reverting back, obviously, 3 days in the timeline of the show, and then that's where it ends. And so now we're going to have to wait, most likely, 2 years, because I think we waited 2 years. I'm pretty positive. I'd have to look it up. Time just is all meshed together for me. We're going to have to wait 2 years for the season 3, which I don't know how they're going to go through all of Abby's story, and then with Craig Mazin saying they most likely need a season 4 to tell all of part 2. My thought is they're going to go through all of Abby's story up to the point where it leaves off in season 2, and then season 4 is probably like the last 2-3 hours of the game, where it's more focused on Abby and Lev looking for a Firefly base, and then back to Ellie looking for Abby, and then their eventual fight. This is spoilers, by the way, for I don't even remember when the game came out. You know, eventual fight, and then Ellie not killing Abby. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm very confused on how they're going to end up writing this out, unless they maybe decide they want to split Abby's story in half, or cut it off at a certain point and then finish it out in season 4. And I'm not going to even try and speculate any further. It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, again, overall 4, maybe a 5. We'll go with 5. You know, I do want to try and give some credit to what they did some of the acting in the show and episode 2. But other than that, there's just, yeah. But I'll go ahead and end this video right there. So again, I've been Everett. If you like what I'm doing with this channel, I passed 500 subscribers now. So, you know, yippee, woohoo! So yeah, you know, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good shit. And until next time, I'll catch you later.
Score.